Hi there. I'm so happy you're here. Your time is precious, and because of that, I want to let you know right away what you'll gain by listening to the very last second of this conversation with Matt Renwick. Matt offers so many effective strategies for how to organize your coaching practices using both print and digital notebooks. Even more, he'll help you know when to shift from print to digital note-taking methods. He offers tips for leaving impactful feedback after classroom visits, and he offers strategies for maintaining confidentiality while documenting your coaching sessions, which is never easy. Stay with us. I am so excited to have you join our conversation. Let's go. This is Schoolutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that offers educators and caregivers strategies to try right away and ensure every student receives the inspiration and support they need to thrive. I am Olivia Wall, and I am so fortunate to have Matt Renwick back as a guest. Matt was a guest in Season 2, Episode 33. We were discussing how to support educators that were resistant to change. Matt, I told you earlier that every time I see read by example in my inbox email, I get excited because I know I'm going to learn something new from you and grow. And the recent blog that rocked my world, how to use both print and digital notebooks to organize your coaching practice. This is a conversation I am having all the time in September with the coaches I'm supporting. Before we jump into this amazing blog and your strategies, who is a researcher, or what piece of research do you lean on when it comes to note-taking or documenting coaching work?
I was just talking about it this morning. I'm going to not pronounce the name correctly. The Zykergen effect, something like that.
Okay.
I read about it in Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. And the effect is that people are more likely to remember open loops, projects that are not finished. They're going to keep coming back to it. More so than when they close things out, when finished products are done, they don't remember them as much anymore. So how that relates to coaching notebooks is we have all these things in our mind. We have so many responsibilities, and if we all only have them up here in our mind, that's just too much, right? So we need some kind of an external brain, an external mind, second brain to house all of that information so that we don't have to our brain just keeps trying to close the loops in all these little projects, and our attention gets fractured. So that, again, I probably mispronounced the name, but the book talks about it nicely. And they actually did research on waiters and waitresses. If you've ever been in a restaurant where they'll take your order, but they won't write it down.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm always nervous.
Yeah, right. And so they practice it, right? But what they found is once the table closed and they paid the bill and they left, the waiters and waitresses could not remember what they ordered.
That's fascinating.
Because they closed the loop on it. So that's what your brain is doing, is it's trying to solve all these problems for you in the background, and your subconscious, kind of like a computer. And pretty soon your computer slows down because you've got too much memory being used trying to just manage all these files. So you got to offload it somewhere else. So that can be print, that can be digital. And I usually use a blend. So that's what that post was about.
So that explains a lot. And you didn't even know, but yesterday I was having a meeting with coaches and teachers prepping for a learning lab next week. We have 2 learning labs coming up in a middle school. And I was having a conversation around asking, how do you document your conferring notes as teachers? And, it's the ever-present struggle of being overwhelmed, too much documentation. What do I choose to write down? Yeah. And we talked about, all conferring for me helps me know patterns or notice patterns for future instruction of what most need, what some need, and what the one-on-one outliers are. But I actually, thank goodness, had printed the blog and I had it next to me because one of the teachers was saying, I just keep it all in my head. And I've actually heard a coach say this too, like, I don't document, I have it all in my head. And I thought, no, wait, just a moment. And I read this line, and it was poignant. In general, instructional leaders in general are looking for strategies and systems to manage the complexity of their positions. We cannot manage all the inputs and commitments we have with our minds alone. Just what you said. We need an external mind, a second brain to hold these ideas within a trusted system. I read your words, and there was a pause, a very quiet pause in the meeting, because these teachers have also shared with me that their plates runneth over with all of the outside commitments they have. And so let's talk print notebooks, digital notebooks, and a coaching notebook overall. How do you choose what to include in a print notebook or even get that set up?
So I've seen it where coaches will have two notebooks. They'll have one notebook, which is just a, I don't want to call it a junk notebook, but kind of an inbox where they just write all the stuff down. They're just writing stuff down, and it's not something that's a permanent notebook. That's something that they might scan in later into like a digital file, or they'll take those notes later and then put it into more of their coach's notebook. So the coach's notebook is a hub. It's kind of your central location for all of your work. That's where I keep all of like my tasks and projects that I need to accomplish. I keep it on lists in my notebook. And then I have a daily log where I'm just documenting a few things there. But if I'm taking heavy notes, I'm just going to pull out some, it could be any kind of, I've used my kids' leftover notebooks from the last school year. I'll find them laying around. I'm like, oh, that's great. And that's just an inbox and just a place for me to get stuff down. But my coach's notebook is more structured with like a daily log. And like I said, like lists of projects and next actions or tasks.
Yeah.
So my rule of thumb with technology is I use it only when I need it. And so for like articles that I want to save, I'm not going to I'm not keeping binders of articles anymore. I'm scanning them in, or I'm saving them to I use Evernote, but there's a lot of good note taking tools out there. But I'll use digital when my physical notebook can no longer hold, what I need.
Yeah.
So setting up for a project, I'll keep a lot of them into like some kind of a project notebook and a note app.
So I do like OneNote. I've been experimenting with that. And even when I was coaching years ago, it was like early 2000s, and I had different buildings in New York City I was coaching in. And then I had within the building, the different grade levels. And here's the thing though, when I was only digital, even though I had the tablet and it could recognize my writing, I felt like I was always searching for my notes. Whereas if I had a print notebook, for some reason, I can close my eyes and see where I physically wrote it. And that was always fascinating to me because I was still writing in a OneNote doc, but.
Yeah. I don't know the research, but I'm aware there is research that shows just writing by hand.
Yeah.
Is more effective than typing it out, just in terms of memory and processing. So, some like large language models like ChatGPT and like Claude can now read your handwriting. So if you were to take a picture of it and upload it to AI, it'll transcribe it for you with 95+% accuracy. And then you can take those notes and put them into OneNote, right? So, and maybe even OneNote does that. More of these note-taking apps are able to read your writing. So, but yeah, you're right. Like the memory is just different when we're typing versus writing by hand.
It is. What do you write in your daily log?
I can show it to you.
Yeah.
So today is my daily log. Let's see here. So like here is just my new day. It's it's October 4th. Here's just kind of my goal for the day, to just stay motivated, stay unattached to outcomes, really focus on the process and not get too caught up in expectations. So I put some kind of a purpose, intention statement at the beginning. And then I was just at a PAC meeting, which is for superintendents. So I just listed a few things I wanted to remember, but there's only two things. Like, I didn't record a lot of it because I know that whatever I write down, I may need to process at some point. So that's kind of my filter, is like, do I really need to know this? Do I need to really remember this? And if it's no, it's like, forgetting is okay too. It's a feature of that. So, but when in doubt, I do write it down. For like coaching notes, if I'm actually coaching with someone, it'll be another bullet in there, and then I'll take quite a few more notes, just kind of writing down. Seeing those notes on paper, I can see like trends and patterns, as long as the client feels comfortable with me writing in front of them. And I will always say, like, I'm just writing this for myself. Happy to share my notes later, and sometimes I do.
And so that's something, but I grapple with that, Matt, because you want to be documenting so you can name assets, like all of the practices that you see in the classroom, and then label that for the teacher with research of like, you're doing this and here's some research that has your back. It's also, the coaches I'm working with lately, we're also talking about confidentiality. And so it's that, what could be shared? What are you comfortable with me documenting? So how do you roll with that? If you're taking notes and you're in a coaching cycle, what do you share with principals or others outside of you and that teacher?
So if I'm an external coach, so I will come into districts, kind of like you, I think, right, Olivia?
Yes.
Same thing.
Coach almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will speak with the principal and say, here's what I will share with you. Here's what I will not. And then I clarify that with the teachers too, of like, here's kind of the line between the two things I'll share. I would never share my notes with the administrator, but I might give them themes. Like, I'm noticing this across the building. We've done some data analysis around that with observations, and but there's been times where I have not been clear enough, and I will. That's something I have to be careful about, because that the trust is so important. And
it is.
If I'm not being clear from the start, like, this is what I'm going to share, this is what I'm not. That can be problematic. So, I think just having just being really clear.
But I also appreciate that you ask teachers if they're comfy, because some people get super stressed out if they see you documenting or writing, whether it's, in print or digital, it doesn't matter, because they're wondering, what are you writing down? So it's been fascinating to try to have some coaching labs happening for me, and have two coaches together watching each other. And so we're actually framing it that we're not really watching the teacher, we're actually watching fellow coaches, and that sometimes alleviates a little bit of pressure, but then I'm coaching the coaches. So I think it goes back to that idea of parallel practice, right? And so that's what I also think of when I read this blog. If we're asking teachers to document the growth of every student that they're supporting and serving, then it is our responsibility to show growth with the teachers that we're coaching or the coaches that we're coaching. So I think that's interesting. How you've already spoken a little bit, but for digital notebooks, what are some of the allures, or like, what are the benefits that seem glaring and exciting about digital?
It's like an extension of your extended mind. So if the notebook is, level 1, technology can be level 2, and depending on the tool you use, it can be quite robust. So like OneNote, I think, can use, like, you put like images and text and audio, and you can have it all in OneNote, which is, if you're like in a classroom, you could be recording a kid's conversations in a small book club, plus take a picture of it, plus write some notes in there. I mean, that's a very rich document that you could share back to a teacher. Those are one of the benefits. At the same time, the limitlessness the unlimitedness of technology can be problematic, because then you're throwing everything in there. And then if it's not a system and you're not intentional about what you are putting in there and wanting to keep, it becomes hard to find those notes. So I think that's part of what you were saying, Olivia, before, is you go back into your OneNote and you just, you might have just had too much information, and it was like trying to find that one note, and then, it's just getting lost in everything else. So
it becomes an abyss. It does.
Yeah.
It does. So Matt, you're in a classroom, you're taking notes, the teacher is comfortable with it. What do you leave? What's your follow-up based on the notes you took? What do you share with teachers?
I always leave something tangible, like a Post-it note or even a piece of paper saying one thing that I really appreciated about being in there. And it's not a good job. It's not a attaboy, but it's like, I noticed, blank. I noticed you had kids at your writing center that were writing for an audience, and they had choice in what to write about. And then I will, like you said, Olivia, I'll connect that to a best practice, such as an instructional framework or whatever they're using to articulate best practice, and say, that is authentic engagement, and building kids as independent writers. So I'll always leave something like that with me saying it too, if I can, if they're not teaching. But always make sure I leave with something positive, so that, especially if you're a coach in the building or a principal in the building, that's a great way to build trust, because I'm sure a lot of is just those repeated visits over time, and their brains just start to associate your visits with positiveness. And
yeah.
And then when you have to deliver some more critical feedback, it's just, it comes across better.
Well, and it's so fascinating, because even in conversations prepping for work with schools next week, we all want to do well. We want to show up and be valued. And so what I appreciate so much about your approach, you truly value the grown-ups that you're serving and supporting. And you approach this work, because we both know trust is everything. And I believe that trust isn't built before you show up at a district. I think it's on the ground. You have to show up, and if you make a mistake, you own it and be vulnerable together. But that's what I love about coaching. It's messy, and it's grounded in that inquiry-based stance. So Matt, I so appreciate you taking this time to share your strategies for print and digital notebooks. And it's a constant conversation that I'm having with coaches. And so I appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Olivia.
Yeah. Take care, friend. Schoolutions Coaching and Teaching Strategies is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music that's playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Schoolutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Matt Renwick, for sharing how we can balance organizing our coaching practices using both print and digital notebooks. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email at schoolutionspodcast@gmail.com. Let me know, how do you balance print and digital note-taking in your coaching cycles and work with teachers? How do you maintain confidentiality while documenting your coaching work when it comes to sharing with principals and admin and keeping that trust going with your teachers? And what kinds of feedback do you leave your teachers? Or as a teacher, what kind of feedback are you looking for from your coaches after classroom visits? Tune in every Monday for the best research-backed coaching and teaching strategies that you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. I can't wait to have you join the conversation next week. See you then.